Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Speak Life podcast. My name is Cherie, and I am your host. So, right now, I'd like to have a basic conversation with everyone this morning. I pray that everyone is doing well, trying to adjust to what people are calling the new normal. However, this appears to be an adjustment period for us. This appears to be a time for us to just sit back and do some reflecting. If I would call it anything, I'd call it a reset. Our moment of reset. First thing I want to point out is I know that a lot of us are not working. A lot of us are scrambling around to get essential things. And a lot of us are at home with our children. And we haven't really had time to process it. It just came and it happened, and we're dealing with it. I want to point out that a lot of people are saying, a lot of people of faith, and I love the people of God with all my heart. I love everybody with all my heart. But I feel there's a misconception that we all need to face. And that is that we all have to feel this and process it. We all have to feel this situation and process it because we're human. And just because we're processing it differently and we're not processing it like someone else, people want to label that as a lack of faith and trust in God, which is an insult to people who are just processing. When we're dealing with something we've never experienced before, your first reaction is going to be shock. Some of us are still in shock. Like, what in the world is happening? What's going on? How did this happen? There are questions that you have, and it's normal. And for the most part, we'll say, okay, this is happening. Okay, God, we know you got us. And then we can move on. But no one should be attacking people's faith just because they choose to handle a situation differently. Yesterday, I listened to the Surgeon General, and the things that he was saying made sense. It was practical measures for social distancing and for not spreading the infection. And it made a lot of sense to me. It had nothing to do with making you panic, nothing to do with what you believed or what you don't believe. It was fact. There are many among us who have predisposed conditions, illnesses, where you could catch this thing and pass it on to someone else without even knowing it. And these facts were very interesting. He wasn't trying to scare people, but he was explaining what was going on. And I think that's the problem. I think people aren't really listening to what's going on, and they're just saying, people don't have any faith, and I think that's wrong. And I'll probably get backlash for this, but in a time of trouble, he will hide us. And he who dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide in the shadow of the Almighty. We know that, especially those of us who are strong Christians who've been in this thing for a long time. We know that. But we also know that being a Christian does not shield you from the ambiguities of life. When someone gets a diagnosis, a medical diagnosis, they go through a process, emotional process. And that's what this is. This is an emotional process. So in order to go through it, we have to get over the initial shock. Now, we cannot allow it to consume us, to elevate our anxiety, because if we elevate our anxiety, we'll give in to depression. Depression will lower our immune system and will be even more susceptible to this. So what we have to do is get through this. And if we have to talk to people, we have to talk it out to some professionals. I know there are several hotlines and people available, and churches are calling people, pastors and leaders of the church are calling people, praying with them. If we need to do that, well, then we need to do that. Let this be a time of reset. Let this be a time, if you're home, where you sit down and you're processing things. You're processing, how you're going to do this and how you're going to do that. You're processing your next career move. You're processing your next vacation once things lift. Do something productive. I know a lot of people are doing the homeschooling. So, it gives you a little leverage in terms of, timing. A couple of hours with the kids on this. They take a break. You take a break too. You take a break too and just, have your time. If you're working, after 5, try to get things together for yourself. It's not easy all of a sudden going to work every day, having this whole family home. That's not easy. So when people are told that this has to happen, of course you're going to be shaken. But you can't stay there. We have to move past this. We have to show courage. One thing we have to do is show some unity among the brethren. We have to show each other, you know what? I got your back. Every pastor needs to find a way to get the message to their flock that it's okay. We're praying for you. God got this. Encourage them. No, we don't want to see people in a complete panic. But at the same time, we don't want to make people feel bad for having genuine feelings. Look at this as a message from God, letting us know this is time to choose who you serve. And that life is now, as we know it, has been interrupted. It's been interrupted from our normal routine. People think, get up in the morning, go to work. I'm going to go shopping. I'm going to go to the mall. I'm going to take my family out to dinner. I'm going to do all of these things that I normally do. Now I cannot do them. Because life has been interrupted. And guess what? Life did not only interrupt the poor, but it interrupted the rich, the middle class, the races, the world. Life interrupted the world. And the world has to deal with it. And we're praying for all those who have been afflicted by this, all those who have family that have been afflicted by this. We're praying. Because some people right now are going through some very hard economic times. The jobs that they had, where they depended on the basics, they're not paying. They can't afford to pay while they're down. So we need to come together and encourage the people. Keep the message of hope going on, and that this too shall pass. So if you see someone a little worried about what's going on, just pray for them. Pray that they feel better and that their life interrupt